Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minute Ministries. And we're continuing on with the Doctrine of Suffering series. Now last time I talked about no fault suffering. But this time I'm going to talk about the suffering that others cause us. The outside interference, the people who go out of their way to make our lives miserable. The bullies, the thieves, or whatever, what have you. Whatever others do to purposely cause us harm and distress. Those are the people I'm discussing. Now, why is there that type of suffering? Why do others cause us to suffer? Well, as I've already talked about, Adam and Eve brought sin into the world. The problem is they also brought sin into themselves, and it became just another genetic trait to pass on to their children. So each one of us has a sin nature. Each one of us has the ability and sometimes desire to cause the suffering in others. We may have our reasons for it, but it's still wrong, and we know it's wrong. Because if others did it to us, we wouldn't like it either. But it's sinful, and we cause the sin. Now, when we ask why is there suffering? Why is there that type of suffering? A lot of people want to blame God immediately. Say, God, why did you let this happen? But we're asking the wrong question. The question is, why did that person do that at all? Why did the person cause me to suffer? Well, I've already answered that question. That person is doing that because that person chooses to. That person has a sin nature in them. They have a choice to do the right thing or do the wrong thing. And most people, and if we're honest, everybody will at some point in time choose the wrong thing. We will choose to cause others to suffer. Now, some people will choose an extreme thing to make people suffer. And it's going to happen. If you haven't suffered because of someone else yet, you will. Now, what do we do about it? All right, we've already established each one of us has that ability, and others are going to sin against us. So what do we do about it? Well, the first thing we need to do is trust that God is going to use it in some way. We've already talked about how God can use suffering for our benefit and for His glory. But we don't feel that at the time, especially if someone does it to us, especially if it's someone who is close to us, who we love and care about, and we thought loved and cared about us. That type of it's really hard to get past. But we need to trust that God has a purpose for it. He did not cause the suffering, but He has the ability to use it. Now, the next thing we need to do, and this is not an easy thing at all, we need to forgive. When others wrong us, when others cause us to suffer, we need to forgive that person. And some of you may be thinking, well, I need to forgive someone who rapes, I need to forgive someone who steals, who murders, I need to forgive someone who is mentally cruel and makes my life miserable. Yes you do. I didn't say it was easy. I just said you need to do it. Why? Because that's what God requires of us. And not only that, it releases us from holding that debt onto that person. Now, I want to make something very, very clear. Just because you forgave the person does not mean that they are free from the consequences of what they've done. Now, sometimes they do need to go to jail. Sometimes they need to face whatever consequence. Sometimes they need to get fired, whatever the consequence may be. Sometimes the consequence is you were no longer in that person's life. Sometimes it does have to come to that. Now, that does not mean you just say, all right, well, I'm not gonna hold this against you. I'm not gonna press charges. No, I'm just gonna let everything go. But let's just pretend it never happened. We can't always do that, can we? But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is saying, I no longer hold this against you. I'm going to move on from this. No, they're not required to ask for that. Because if you don't forgive, and I've talked about this in other videos, if you don't forgive, bitterness creeps up in you. It grows and grows, and you suffer even more. Suffering you don't need to suffer. You're causing yourself to suffer, and you certainly don't want to do that. So you need to forgive and you need to trust God. No, it's not easy. And sometimes what has happened will live with you forever. And you just have to leave it in God's hands. Whenever it crops up, you say, God, I need to release this. Please help me get past this. Please help me deal with this in the proper way. Suffering is not an easy topic to discuss. Forgiving those who cause suffering is not easy to do. But I can tell you, through Christ, we have the ability to overcome that suffering. Well, this has been 5 Minute Ministries, and I'll see you next time.